Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast. This is Dr. Claire Moon, and we're going to be looking at the first 2 weeks of May. So if you're joining me, welcome. If you're joining me again, welcome back. You can always look over to the right-hand side of your screen. There should be a little chat box over there. You can feel free to interact with me or anyone else who comes along. If you have any questions today, just let me know in the chat. And also, if you're listening to this later, put your questions in the comments, or if you have anything you feel comfortable sharing about transit experiences you've been having. Sorry, clearly the mic is not going well today. If you have anything you are comfortable sharing, we're going to be doing our reflections as usual today. So feel free to share your fun transit stories as well. Okay, I think I made it worse. Excellent. So let's let's go through my little announcements. Thing one, I am doing a workshop on the 17th. So just in 2 days, on Friday afternoon, May 17th at 5:30 p.m. Central Time, I am doing a workshop on Jupiter and Gemini. Now, if you haven't gone onto my website to check that out, it is a little too late. However, I am going to be posting it after the fact. So if you are too late on the uptake getting into it live, there will be a recording afterwards that will be available for purchase for pretty cheap. And eventually, I am going to be putting some Jupiter and Gemini content on my YouTube channel as well. That's going to be a little bit more generic, not kind of the one-on-one stuff, of course, because it'll be a recording. But there's going to be a lot of Jupiter and Gemini information that I'm going to be putting out there. So I'm not probably going to cover it super in depth today, but we will be covering Jupiter going into Gemini today. We're also going to be looking at, we got what is it, a Sag full moon. Yeah, let's just do our little list of dates here. So we've got dates of interest. We've already had our Pluto stationing direct on the 2nd of May. We had a Taurus new moon on the 7th. We have Mercury entering Taurus today, Jupiter Cazimi on the 18th, the Sun entering into Gemini on the 20th, Venus entering Gemini on the 23rd, which is the same day on the 23rd as that Sagittarius full moon. And then finally the 25th, Jupiter entering Gemini. As far as things that have already happened, so kind of looking at the past a little bit before we jump into the future. Let's get the clock up here. Excuse me. So we've been having a lot of Uranus activity. The sun has been moving through Uranus. We already had our Jupiter-Uranus exact conjunction. That's moving away now, but still very close, active. And we have Venus, who's going to be passing through Uranus. So that's something that has already been the case, and that will continue to be the case, is just Uranus's involvement over the next couple weeks. I would say, if you're coming into astrology and you're kind of new, you're still picking up the planetary information. Uranus, basically keywords, interruptions, disruptions, breakthroughs, sudden stuff, unexpected stuff, independence, freedom. So I think a lot of times Uranus stuff can just have us all expressing ourselves very authentically, and that can be really fun. So have fun out there. We will talk about that a little bit more later when we get to Venus and Uranus, but that's going on. It's been going on. What else has been going on? Mars has been in Aries. I can tell. I know that we just had, this is actually the one I wanted to ask people about. This Mars moon square that we just had on the 11th. It was it was a fast day for me. It was a busy day for me. But I did have kind of a funny little anecdote from that day, because it was such like a beautiful expression of, you know, constructive, fun, not bad Mars stuff, basically, in an overcoming square with the moon. So essentially Mars being action, effort, also individuality, moon being more nourishing, slower paced, caring, supportive. The moon can be, especially in Cancer, can be a lot about food. If we think about what nourishment is, And so much of it comes around food. So on this day, on the 11th, I had some friends over. We had some friends over in the backyard, and we were playing some lawn games, drinking, having a good time. And some people brought some food items, as is convention, as is tradition. When there's a backyard party, people bring food. And it was really funny because like no one was touching the food. Like everyone was like doing all of the Mars things, like moving around, doing action things, playing, like I said, lawn games, drinking, which is, can be quite a Mars activity. And that was taking precedence over the queso and the the pretzels. So we see what is it to have an aspect, but then furthermore, what is it to have an overcoming aspect when, and now I'm getting into teaching mode right away today. So overcoming is it only counts with the sextile, a square, and a trine, but one planet has to be earlier in zodiacal order and have an aspect by sign. So in this case, Mars is earlier in order. They're in Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. And so they have what the ancient astrologers in the Hellenistic times, they talked about that planet having almost like an upper hand position. It has the more powerful position. And so its significations are going to play out a little bit more loudly, maybe, than the planet that is in later order or in the inferior position versus the superior earlier position. So in that case, we saw what was overcoming the moon. Actions, doing stuff, being vibrant and alive and youthful, and less of the foodstuffs. So, and it, the square part of it too, it was kind of awkward, and it ended up requiring a lot more effort than it would have otherwise, which didn't need to happen. So we see square Mars efforts, 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 and efforts in the name of nourishment as well. And people just having the impetus, having the initiative to be like, hey, I'm going to go do this thing. I'm going to bring this thing and, share it with people. So, squares don't have to be bad. Mars overcoming aspects don't have to be bad. And this was just a really good example of that. So I wanted to share that. Did anyone have anything from the 10th, 11th? Anything interesting? Doesn't look like it. All right. So I think that was the only past reflection that I really had. Let's see. I know I kind of got into the 15th on the last forecast, but I am going to revisit that because with Mercury entering Taurus, we are going to want to talk about that. So Mercury is currently at 2957 of Aries, and very, very shortly they're going to be moving into Taurus. That is a bit of a slower pace. Dignity-wise, Mercury is fine in both signs. They're being ruled either by Mars in domicile or Venus in domicile. And so no matter what, Mercury is getting resourced pretty well at this point in time. So communications should be happening at this point. Mercury recently having got out of its post-retrograde shadow, now it's a lot of the maybe confusion or delays or having to kind of go back and tie up loose ends. A lot of that messiness should be in the rearview mirror as we're now kind of moving in a more forward progressive direction. And that'll just continue. Although the pacing between Aries and Taurus is a bit different. We're going from a cardinal fireplace to a fixed earth place. So, but at the same time, okay, if you want things to happen fast, that's one thing. If you want those things to happen in a really clear, careful, thoughtful way, that is a different thing. And Taurus, Mercury is going to be more of that careful, slower, thoughtful, deliberate type of energy being brought to the communication, being brought to the planning. So I know, it's been kind of a rough month on the internet as usual. And I'm kind of looking forward to Mercury going into Taurus and slowing down the words just a little bit. Hold on one second. I'm going to make an adjustment. I'll be right back. There we go. All better. So the exact ingress for Mercury, that's going to be at 12:05 p.m. Central Time. So in 55 minutes from now. So if you do have any mercurial things, look at the Gemini places, look at the Taurus, or sorry, look at the Virgo places in your chart. And right now, Mercury is in this last bit of cardinality. It just feels like such a good time, like to get started on those last minute types of things you might be wanting to start with your Gemini house topics and your Virgo house topics, because this will get a little bit of fire in our bellies about it, a little bit of oomph, as we kind of take off. So for me, this would be like my fifth and my eighth. So if there was a new creative project I wanted to really get going, Mercury ruled, and Mercury being in Aries, that would be a nice energy to bring into those places. So last call, you got 55 minutes. If you're listening to this live, at that time too, they'll be, and this is something that we ended our last forecast with, but Mercury is dealing with a square with Pluto. So right now, May 15th into May 16th, we will see Mercury applying to that square with Pluto. So Mercury-Pluto contacts, especially in a square, it can be really powerful speech, but discord, powerful words, but Mars. So asserting oneself in a powerful way, advocating for oneself in a really powerful way. But it could also be, discord, difficulties with communication in some way that might have to do with either just intensity, power dynamics, power differentials, those types of things. Perhaps we just have those things on the mind. Mercury is planning, thinking, speaking, listening. So it could just be the mind really trying to wrap itself around certain power dynamic situations or power differentials. So again, that's today, the 15th, the 16th. That's kind of the vibe. So do with that what you will. We see here at this time already, we've got Venus within 3 degrees of Uranus. So Venus conjoining Uranus right now in our relationships, we might need a little bit more independence or space. Not a problem at all. This could be trying new things, trying novel things in the relationship. It's definitely like the stereotypical, like, let's spice up the bedroom. Like, so it's a good time to try new things. Any type of relating that you want to do differently, this is a good kind of breakthrough energy to do those things. Is very supported right now in Taurus. It's just like all of the energy in Taurus. And I think, as we'll see as I talk about the next 2 weeks, if I could just give like a headline for the next 2 weeks without burying the lead too much, it's like we've got all this stability in Taurus right now. And even if it's like, because I think we think, oh, Jupiter, abundance, lottery tickets. And it's like, nah, usually Jupiter, I feel like they're just stabilizing stuff. They're just bringing, I've just been seeing them so much, just liberating people from difficulties. So it's not like they're, it's not as simple as just growth and abundance with Jupiter. Sometimes we have to dial that down. But even when we do dial down those expectations, stability is amazing and cannot be understated how great it is. And so for the next 2 weeks, we've still got this kind of stable Taurus firming energy from which to jump off on. There's going to be a lot of air and fire, a lot of wanting to get going, even more than we already have. A wanting to enjoy all the things in Gemini, just the multitude of inspirations and opportunities when Jupiter turns into Gemini. So that's going to be really fun. So it's like, yeah, this month, May and June, it is time. And the time is nigh. It's time to like use whatever stability and resources we have right now to jump off and do the things and do the stuff. And over the next 2 weeks, I think there's just a lot of air and fire that's going to like lift us up and help us to do those things. There are some serious conversations in the mix. There's a few days, like particularly the 18th through the 20th, more in the global west, global east. That's going to be more the 19th through the 21st. I believe that's what it is. Yeah. There's kind of some more serious days. Might be some constructive but crunchy things. But overall, like those serious conversations that are kind of peppered throughout the next 2 weeks, it is underneath this what feels like a very supportive, exciting umbrella of energy. So, um, yeah, I did actually have some general thoughts. I didn't write any before, but I think those are it. So let's see, what else on the 15th? The moon is also going to be squaring Jupiter and the sun today, basically. Last night, today. So yeah, these last couple days, this moon in Leo has been pretty activating and fun for me personally. Uh, I think 16th looks a little quieter. The moon is going to be entering into Virgo. And as soon as they do that, of course, the moon is going to be in a nocturnal sign, not Virgo, more internalizing, practically earthly focused. And they're going to be coming up on an opposition with Saturn. So yeah, the May 16th Thursday looks a little quieter than today, the 15th. Uh, the 16th is not the day when I would put out requests for things. Saturn can be a reflection of obstacles, delays, burdens, and rejection, the word no. And so anytime the moon is applying to an opposition with Saturn, that's not when I ask for stuff. However, the next day on the 17th, that is more after moon clears Saturn. And so when is that going to be? That looks like, is that true? Work smarter, not harder. May 17th at 4:48 in the morning Central Time. Whoops. That is when the moon is done, or completing, I should say. It's not done with it, but it's completing it. So let's just say um, you can start requesting things again after about 5 in the morning on May 17th on Friday. Then you're good. And if you are more in the global east, then that is going to be moon does not clear Saturn until the end of the day on Friday. So you might have to hold your horses, or you might, maybe let's just say you've got to do stuff. Maybe you don't have the luxury or the privilege of being able to just not do things or delay things. And maybe you're doing things and maybe they are getting delayed. And maybe it's going slow on the 17th. May not be you, may just be the circumstances around you. But yeah, later on the 16th into the 17th, we want to be aware of that. Venus applying to Uranus still on the 16th. Like I said, that's kind of fun, in my opinion, fun, novel, new kind of energy, breakthroughs, interruptions. This is very much going to the restaurant. I use this example every time, and they don't have your thing on the menu. So you have to order something else, which actually really sucks for Taurus. They usually like to know that they're going to get something they really enjoy. So it can be, Uranus has been in Taurus since 2018. We've been asking, or we've been being asked to change things and do things differently in Taurus since 2018. So none of this is new, but this is yet again our annual opportunity to do the new, different things with our relationships. Or if it just is disruptive to relationships, it's our annual opportunity to let distance make the heart grow fonder, or to let whatever other things be water under the bridge if we need them to be. I don't expect any discord, but Venus, sudden things, sometimes it depends. And I would say too, like in the Taurus part of your chart, look to the house topics in Taurus. So for this theoretical Leo rising person, it would be their career. And I would say if there is a need for you to try out something new, to experiment with something, to do a novel type of project with someone, this is a great time to be doing that for sure, to try new things. So for me in my private life or in my home or dwelling, this would be like, maybe I'll rearrange my office, see what that feels like. So it is a great opportunity to do things like that and probably have a really fruitful outcome because Venus is here and Jupiter is here. On the 17th, at this point, the moon is going to be in a trine with all of that. So all of this kind of growthy abundance, at least stability, at least liberation from difficulty, at best abundance and growth and opportunity. And the moon is really plugging into that on the 17th. So, once we get past that opposition with Saturn, it's almost like that, maybe that could be, obstacles, delays, rejections aside, moon opposite Saturn a lot of times is just working, doing the work, putting in the process, putting in the reps to have the gains over time. And it's like on the end of the day on Friday, um, by then we're really plugging into the abundance from that growth, the fruit from that labor, so to speak. Or, if we're having some serious conversations, by the end of the day on Friday into Saturday, the 18th, we're starting to see maybe some constructive things come in or some possible solutions, resolutions, and maybe unexpected ones with Uranus there. Okay. On the 18th, so this is where I mentioned kind of more some interesting, potentially serious types of days. We get the moon entering into an opposition with Mars, who at this point is pretty much with Rahu, pretty much with the North Node. So moon opposite Mars, classic conflict configuration. So May 18th, May 19th, it's pick your battles day. Pick your battles. And as the meme, the battle meme, it says that's still too many battles. Put some of those down. Still too many battles. Because Mars is going to be so quick to do that. They want to assert, they want to advocate. If you are in a situation right now, like let's say you're a protester on a campus on the 18th and 19th, these are the days where I'd be like packing extra snacks, being in extra good communication with the people who, need to support you or who are supporting you, just, really taking extra good care of each other and ourselves on the 18th and 19th, because that potential for conflict looks higher on those days. Not a sure thing. Anytime when there's any kind of configuration in the sky, it is not a matter of, oh, this will definitely happen or this definitely will not happen, and it will definitely be good or it definitely will be bad. I'm not that powerful of a wizard. I don't think any of us are, but looking at the sky, what probabilities will increase or decrease? Is there some kind of probability of this certain type of more favorable or less favorable thing happening? Now, a more favorable outcome from moon opposite Mars would be the gathering of people. The moon gathers people together for a common cause. So the gathering of people together to put in a big effort. So that could be another thing, is that this could be the day of some kind of charge of some kind, just like a push for progress in some way, shape, or form on the 18th and 19th. The only reason I'm a little concerned is because the North Node is here. They dial everything up, and Mars in Aries was already dialed up. So this is where it's like fast becomes faster, impulsivity becomes even more impulsive, anger it becomes rage, essentially. Everything gets dialed up, and Chiron is here. So this could be poison or medicine. It could be healing. It could be extra ouchy or be related to a recurrently difficult situation. On the 18th and 19th of May, we may really be having to balance how do we do that thing with each other where we're able to assert ourselves, advocate for what we believe in, embody what we believe in, but do it in a way that doesn't harm other people? How do we do that? That is a lifelong sport. When you figure it out, let me know. Um, but yeah, all that might be on, very on that day. Uh, I know that, all the Taurus planets, they are not in a traditional aspect with Libra, right? But because Venus is in Taurus, she's in her own sign here. There's a loophole kind of rule where now there's a little bit more added sympathy between these places. And so I do think the moon is kind of in an indirect, inadvertent way, getting some kind of support, stability, that Venusian ability to cultivate over time harmony. All of that I feel like is kind of mixed in here. And Libra moon is really diplomatic and can have a cool head and can help to guide us when I think Mars in Aries is going to want to do a lot of things, take a lot of actions. Um, Jupiter Cazimi. Yeah, this is just such an interesting day. So we've got Jupiter Cazimi, we got Venus conjunct Uranus, we've got Mars just about completing its conjunction with the North Node, and we have Moon. All here, Moon and Mars, where the eclipses just happened. So yeah, the 18th looks very interesting. Now, again, this is the peaking of that kind of relational independence, relational reform, doing new things, spicing up the bedroom with the partner, whatever you want to do with that Venus, Uranus. Jupiter Sun conjunction is really kind of a reset button for Jupiter. It's a rebirth for Jupiter, and it is also a rebirth for the Jupiter ruled parts of our chart. So if you want to look at Sagittarius and Pisces and look at the house topics there within. So for this theoretical Leo rising person, this would be their 5th and 8th houses. What in those house topics is being reset, reborn on May 18th? If you would like for them to be reset or reborn, here's your opportunity. Here's your chance. Jupiter is going to be purified in the fires of the sun. And that means it's like a bullshit-free Jupiter. Jupiter, truth, Jupiter, honesty, justice. It's like a clarification on honesty, a clarification on what is just, what is true, a clarification on what we know. It can be a sudden, anytime a planet is in the heart of the sun like this, Cazimi, Echicardios. I feel like I'm saying that wrong. I feel like I just learned that word and that I've been saying it wrong. But anyway, it all means in the heart of the sun. And this is a moment where usually when planets are pretty close to the sun, within 8 to 15 degrees especially, those are difficult degrees for a planet to be in because the sun's rays are so hot and blinding and dry and fiery. But there's a little loophole where when a planet is conjoined exactly with the sun within 1 degree by Hellenistic standards, they're in the middle there, then that can speak to this moment of relief, a moment of respite for that planet. All of a sudden, they're not harmed by being so close to the sun. And on the contrary, now the sun is saying, hey, Jupiter, what would you like to say? What would you like to do? So the sun is our free will. The sun is our will. What do we want to do in this life? Particularly here with the Jupiter topics. So maybe this, for this Leo rising person, would be a clarification on their collaborations, on their end of life plans, on any end of life related topics. The 5th house, maybe we'll see clarity around romance or sex or creativity or children. So yeah, definitely don't leave those parts out. I think Jupiter can also be goodwill. Jupiter is allies, aspiration, inspiration. So, really having a clarification around what is inspiring, what we're aspired toward, or what we're aspiring toward, a clarification around friendship, goodwill, and allyship, maybe. So we can look at a lot of possible outcomes. If you are unsure how the house topics are aligning with the signs in your own chart, if the way to figure that out is to get your chart generated. You can use the Chani Nicholas app. You can use AstroSeek, AstroDienst. Those are my three favorite ones. But then find your rising sign, and then that will place all the house topics. And then furthermore, if you need a little cheat sheet, I have one below linked, the astrology cheat sheet. That has a nice table with all the house topics on there. So for instance, this person with the eighth, I had mentioned end of life things, but also collaborations and sharing of things. And the fifth, sex, rest, fun, children, all that. So yeah, that's how you can kind of best use this information to tailor it to you. And with that, I've been talking for 30 minutes. Let me see if anyone is here, if anyone has any questions. All right, let's see. Hello, Danny. Hello, Reverend Kai. Hi, Timothy. Hoot hoot. Welcome. Yeah, Reverend Kai. So you had some epically weird dreams on the 10th. Danny made some connection online. Hoping for a date. All right. I hope you do too. So welcome. I think I'm not gonna maybe go through all of the stuff I wanted to. I think I might have to cut it down a little bit today because yeah, there's just so much to talk about. But um, if anyone has anything that I'm skipping over, I'll be checking in. Just let me know. But I'm gonna skip over a lot of stuff today, I think. Moon. So the 18th. Moon's across from Mars. Jupiter Cazimi. Venus conjunct Uranus. Um, mm, Neptune is involved, aren't they? So I kind of like it, but I'm also kind of skeptical of it, as usual. That's like my feelings on Neptune in a nutshell. I like it. I also don't trust it. But a lot of this action that we're having at the end of the month and at the end of Taurus, it is sextile Neptune. So I do think there's this really productive, it's a sextile. So there's something maybe helpful, favorable. We're getting more of the favorable things with Neptune, like visions and imagining and dreaming and hoping for kind of the best ideal version. And it can be in the third decan of Pisces, very devotional in that way. So, this May, mid-May here, we might be having like a lot of very hopeful, like hope for the future is here. I don't see here, I'm not concerned about deception as much because it's a sextile. I'm not concerned about, some nefarious dealings or anything. But, this would be at worst like too dreamy, too, imaginative. So as long as we're grounded, as long as we kind of keep it grounded in reality, which again, yay, Saturn. Okay, Saturn's here. I think that helps to ground things. But yeah, Neptune is involved with so much of the things that are happening this month. And so if you do feel like there is this, well, I guess maybe literally for some of our listeners, like in their dreams, but also just like, how are we trying to, again, really tie together like the Pisces and Taurus house topics in our lives? And like, are we aligning with our truest, biggest vision of what we hope for, or are we just kind of settling because we don't think we deserve it or we're not worth it or something? I don't know, but Neptune, they are here. Okay. So on the 19th, stay hydrated, please, too. Also, Mars in Aries is always a good time to stay hydrated just because it's so hot. It's just a lot of action, a lot of moving around. But especially with the North Node, which again dials stuff up, makes things bigger and louder and more frenzied and confusing and not, better. More is not better. More is not always more. So very much stay hydrated. Very much pick your battles on the 19th. If the rest of the sky and if this moon wasn't so well disposited in Taurus with the Taurus stuff, I would be like, this is a mind your own business day for sure. However, because the rest of the sky is fairly grounded, I almost wonder if there's something very constructive to be done on this day. It's a very interesting day on the 18th and 19th. Now on the 20th, the sun is going to enter into Gemini. So now, like this week, so many shifts the last week of May. last 10 days of May. And as soon as Sun enters into Gemini, it's also really locking into this trine with Pluto. So um, Jupiter also coming in fast here on this trine with Pluto. I think trines with Pluto, it's not that the Pluto problems go away. The things that are out of our control, the things that feel insurmountable, power differentials, power dynamics, things that are hidden, corrupt stuff, powerful stuff, that can be hard to hold and navigate around depending on what it is. With Sun and Jupiter coming into a trine here, this feels like a really good opportunity to work with those Plutonian themes and to just, I mean, it feels like plugging into like, I don't know, like just a really big power supply. It's like plugging into a big amp here. And so what do we want to do with that energy? It just feels so fruitful in this trine, like mega inspiration. And it's in an air realm. So, maybe what we're getting really energetic or powerful about or inspired about relating to power dynamics or these power issues, if that's the case. Maybe it's our ideas around them. Maybe it's how we're thinking about these things. Maybe not so much our actions, but definitely like how we're thinking about these things. When it comes to, I guess, looking at the house topics of the chart, this person again, like this theoretical Leo rising, this would be through 11th and 7th. So maybe this has to do with powerful changes and finding points of leverage and finding points for working with really powerful relationships or like, working with the really powerful things that are happening in relationship. So, yeah, it looks very fruitful and it looks very, very much better than a square. Always loving planets being in a trine with Pluto and not a square. And so this whole month of May, they've been moving away from that square into this trine. So if there's been some difficult things, some tangly things, I have a lot of hope that in June we'll make even more headway with those. Gemini, what else? So the sun is going to be in a square with Saturn. Now that's kind of an interesting thing because it's like we have all this very beautiful weather of Jupiter, Venus, Sun as they're going across Taurus and Gemini. And it's like, wow, we've all been kind of looking forward to that. And it has been coming up so far as like for me in Taurus, just a lot of indulgence. There's been a lot of indulgences, a lot of nice, fun, squishy things. So I'm really thankful for that. I think that kind of positive, favorable energy is going to shift into Gemini, but it's really going to be um, kind of oppressed feels like a strong word, but that's essentially what's going on. Saturn is putting a damper. It is putting a set of difficulties, delays, obstacles in front of essentially enjoying ourselves, I think. That's kind of how I'm looking at it a little pessimistically. I think there's a lot of constructive things when we look at planets in square. Again, we started off the hour talking about one with that Moon and Mars square. However, we see Saturn in the overcoming position. So we know that the delays, the challenges, the barriers, the limitations, maybe we're doing stuff and it's fun, but it's within a set of parameters. It's like, yeah, we can do this, but only to this extent. Or yeah, we can do these things, but we have to pick two and not eight. There's always, I feel like, going to be this kind of Saturn exception to whatever is being done in Gemini. And the sun is really going to be tapping into that until June 9th. So May 20th is when the sun enters into the square by sign. It's going to be there for 19 days until the 19th. Or sorry, until the 9th of June. And not to like speed off into the future, but I think June 9th is also another date to earmark. That is I believe that's like the same day that a bunch of other stuff is happening. Mars enters Taurus and Jupiter is making their morning phases on the 9th of June. There's a lot of stuff going on around the 8th or 9th of June. I don't know. I don't know what it is yet, but there's something. All right. May 20th. So Gemini sun versus Taurus sun. I mean, we're going from earth to air, so less practical, more intellectual, less interested in connection for the pursuit of pleasure, more interested in connection in the pursuit of curiosity, I think, is Sun in Gemini. They're so curious, so multi-talented. Gemini people, my love letter to Gemini. Um, I love the Deccan's Walk. This is one of my favorite sets of imagery from Austin Coppock, where they talk about this like Austin Coppock talks about like this levitating woman with like wings and a couple sets of arms, and she's doing all these disparate activities with all of her hands, showing just the multitudinous multiplicativity. That's not a word. It is now, but you know what I'm trying to say. Gemini. Um, when we get it's just like, yeah, there's so much potential. There's so much possibility. And it's interesting too that Demetra George, she talks about it, and I wonder if I can find the page because I love this. It's the way that the elements are talked about, where like the way that the ancient Greeks kind of thought about air was in terms of like potentialities. Yeah, I can't find it, but yeah, I want to say like she mentioned Robert Schmidt here and just how the Greek was being interpreted, but this idea of air and potentiality. Um, Gemini also does that. So it's just more in that way. Many, many, many. When we get to the middle of Gemini, we see this both and, this duality. So over the next 30 days or so, as the sun moves across Gemini, we will maybe be better at holding space for both and. We might be better at, thinking of all the different contributions to a situation. Um, this kind of imagery that Austin Coppock gives is they show like a grizzled old war veteran like gleefully bouncing a child on their knee. It's like, how can you be that and this? It's like, I don't know, but I am. And then the final part of Gemini, which we'll get to more in June, is making hard choices. A lot of like, okay, yeah, I can't have all these for this thing to progress. This other thing might have to get set down for a minute. So I think we're seeing like this commonality, this common thread of multitudinous variety, um, many different iterations, and we're going to be wanting to engage in all of that. So again, look at the house topics. For this theoretical Leo rising person, this would be with friends. Maybe they're just going to be really busy with friends this month. Um, for someone else, if it's in your 10th, maybe it's your career. And that's where all of the multitudinous opportunities are going to be coming from over the next year. Uh, and then not too many days after this, we're going to get Venus entering in with the sun. So she also entering into this trine with Pluto. So with Venus and sun trining Pluto, it's like, I was talking about working with power differential, power dynamic types of issues with Pluto. Sometimes that's the case, or just how to wield power. The sun, our will. What would I really truly like to do in that situation if it were just up to me and nothing else? And then when Venus comes in here, now it does get relational though. And we are thinking, okay, if there's this difficult situation or something that I'm having a hard time surpassing relationally, maybe this is a good time at the end of May to work through those things, have conversations with people that are fruitful and honest. And I think that'll carry us through to the end of May in terms of Venus. She's going to be, yeah, with Jupiter. So, that's just it's such a nice thing. It's like even though the sun has to deal with this overcoming square from Saturn, it really is like this gleeful band of friends who are like trying to move through this territory and have a good time. And regardless of whatever restrictions, limitations, obstacles are happening. Um, on the 20th, that Jupiter-Neptune sextile is also really heating up. So that's there. Moon is opposite Chiron on the 20th. So just be aware of that. I mean, it's after, okay, the moon just opposed Mars. So if you did have a conflict, this would be the later. This would be the balm or the apology, or the lesson or whatever. So yeah, that's why I'm saying pick your battles on the 18th through the 20th. And then Moon enters Scorpio on the evening of the 20th. And then we will be getting some serious conversations. This is one of those serious conversation things that I was wondering about at the beginning of the hour. So as soon as Moon enters into Scorpio, they are entering into a square with Pluto. And a T square kind of is getting set up if we add Mercury into the mix. Um, this was already like, I mean, just in the last few days, like kind of like right now, I feel like, aren't we dealing with something similar to this? Hold on, what's happening? No, we were. The last similar thing we had like this, I just talked about this, the last forecast, this Pluto, Mercury, Moon, T square that gets set up. This was May 13th. This was a couple days ago on Monday. Maybe more pressurized or impactful or meaningful conversations, plans happening on the 13th that we just had. So if you're journaling, look back to that day, and then again on the 21st, we're gonna have something somewhat similar. But now we're dealing, it's not cardinal, it's more fixed energy. So powerful, impactful, more serious conversations regarding Taurus, Scorpio house topics. And the moon also applying to a trine with Saturn, which is another reason why I'm using the word serious. Powerful, impactful, meaningful, not good, not bad, just intense. Again, just to summarize that, so these days of like moon in Libra and moon in Scorpio. Moon in Libra, opposite all of this stuff, Mars stuff and Aries. That's the 18th and the 19th, more in the global west. That's going to be the 19th and the 20th, more in the global east. And then the T square with Pluto, Mercury, trine with Saturn, more of that serious energy after, but also kind of more it's water and earth, so it's more internalized, it's quieter, it's subtler, it's not as outward expressive as air and fire. So it's like the vibe might chill a bit on like the 20th, 21st once moon gets into Scorpio, but that's the external appearance. It doesn't mean that inside of ourselves there won't be a lot going on. So yeah, I guess make sure to Moon Scorpio that we have a trusted friend or adult to talk to to relieve some of that pressure if we are feeling pressurized, and just like squashing it down with our squasher downer, if we remember squasher downer. Uh, yeah. So then in the global west, 20th, 21st, sorry, 21st, 22nd, seriousness. Uh, or no, yeah, 21st. And then global east, 21st, 22nd, more of that seriousness. But then after that, the moon is going to have an opposition with the outers, with Uranus, Neptune, and Venus, Jupiter. So now this feels like on the 22nd, we get the resolution, the balm, the chill out, the whatever. It's not, it seems quite a bit of a nicer vibe. And then that's going to be again on the 22nd. I was just looking at my notes here. So that moon applying to the benefics by degree, as well as a trine to Neptune, it looks really indulgent to me. It looks like a nice time to just like have deep connection with people, deeply indulgent experiences. Like, so honestly, I guess for this one, for like the 22nd into the 23rd, you know, just make sure you're not overdoing it in terms of yum yums and fun funs. But it looks nice after the last few days that we had had. And that's the afternoon. So like that's like the end of the day on the 22nd for the global west. If you're like in Europe, Africa, that's more the 23rd in the middle of the day. and that indulgent, nice time, constructive time, more the evening on the 23rd for the global East time zones. Oh, P.S. I am flying by the seat of my pants this month in terms of this forecast. I didn't do the benefic enclosures or malefic enclosures. I didn't even look at them. I have no idea what they are. Sometimes I'll find them on my own randomly without using the calculator. But I usually like to use that calculator to just double check myself anyway. So if that is something that you're missing today, I apologize. And it comes from AstroSeek. I wonder, I usually link the link because I like it so much. Let's see if I linked to the link. I did. Thank you, past me. I love past me. If you look below, I linked it, the Enclosure Calculator. It is from AstroSeek, and you can look them up there. Essentially, malefic enclosure of the moon. Don't ask for stuff or do things if you can avoid it. If you can't avoid it and it goes sideways, don't be hard on yourself there. You know, you see it in the sky. If it's a benefic enclosure, it can be a little bit of a bubble wrap on a difficult situation, a bit of a protective influence on a difficult situation. A benefic enclosure of the moon can also be cool, good times to do all your things and ask for your stuff and do stuff. Okay, there. Sorry, side quest. Sag full moon. Let's talk about that. So, actually, before I talk about that, let's see if anyone has any questions. Nope. Hello, Rogue. Welcome from New Jersey. All right. So we have the last aspect that the moon is going to make before it gets into this full moon is with Jupiter. It's a opposition with Jupiter. And then it's going to, after that, have a trine with Saturn. And I'm going to just animate it, actually. Let me show you. This one had a bit of a nuance situation on it because I thought the moon was going to be trining Mars afterwards. Or sorry, it's going to be a square with Saturn. I thought it was going to be trining Mars after this full moon because like the last aspect and the next aspect that the moon makes can tell a story. And so if we're going away from Jupiter energy and toward another type of energy, that tells a story. I had thought it was going to be a trine with Mars because it looked like it, but actually Mars ends up moving past the 18 degrees or whatever of like the degree where Saturn is. Mars is faster and they're getting on the other side of that. So by the time the moon does make it to 18 degrees of Sagittarius, then its next traditional aspect is going to be the square with Saturn. So, okay, this looks like a really cool full moon in general. It just looks like it's pretty much not by sign, but close enough, like by degree, by if I look up at the sky, like the moon is opposite the benefics. The moon is opposite the sun is with the benefics. The moon is opposite the benefics during this full moon. So that feels like a very constructive, exciting, enthusiastic, inspiring, cool new moon or full moon. Like it just feels like, I love it. At the same time, if we've got the moon running into Saturn after it, there's a bit of some kind of like slow down seriousness. Okay, cool, but here's like the actual necessary requirements to do that thing that you're excited about doing. It's slow down, a delay. It could possibly be if you're releasing something on a full moon, it could be a cool reception or a slow reception or a slow uptake. So just be really aware what you're doing with this full moon and know that right after it, the moon is going to come into a square with Saturn. But they are really also still in this trine with Mars. So that is, I mean, fire trine, moon to Mars. I don't care what the delays are. I don't care if it's a slow reception. I don't care. We're doing all the things. We're doing it anyway. Let's do all the stuff. Sag full moon. But just know that there is that little weird note at the after it. Other thing with this, if we include the outer planets, then if we do this like last aspect, next aspect thing, it would be a trine with Neptune and then the full moon, and then the moon sextiling Pluto. And that's a story. So like that would be like, oh, Neptune, a trend with Neptune. And so like all of that exciting, enthusiastic first decan of Sag, let's do it kind of energy. Um, that is getting a trine from Neptune, which feels a little delusional, a little like too much imagination, too much visioning, and maybe on the unrealistic note. And then running into a sextile with Pluto afterwards. I mean, something powerful, maybe something constructive, or like owing itself to you being able to navigate powerful situations skillfully. But that is, that's pretty much the moon's next conversation is with Pluto. So this could be, I mean, also just like even revving us up even more, like more Plutonian like power to chase that thing. So it could just be that. But I did want to mention that too, traditional aspects versus with some of these invisible planets. Um, it looks like a great full moon in terms of fleeting enjoyments at the very least. If you are like using this full moon to really try to root into something or release something that's really important to you, I would just make sure that with the Neptune involvement and just kind of being in a loose sign-based square with Neptune as well, that we're really extra clear about details, extra clear about facts, and trying to kind of combat that kind of over Neptunian influence that we can see. Um, yeah, like collaborations wise, again, as long as communication is strong, I don't see any problems. But I guess last thing I'll say about it is that this full moon is happening in this first decan of Sag and Gemini. And the first decan of Gemini, just like that Austin Coppock giving, or just like I was mentioning before with Austin Coppock and the imagery that he was providing for this first decan of the levitating woman doing all of the things and just the potentiality of that, the potentiality of air and that kind of almost impossibly large understanding of like, wow, I could do anything. I could do anything. What do I do? Um, and then this first decan of Sagittarius being, I mean, I call it the Autobahn. It's the Autobahn of the zodiac. It is the fastest. It is so fast. I have my midheaven here, and things always end up going fast. It is said to be infectious. I think that was an Austin Coppock word that they used for this. There's like an infectiousness to things in terms of like not only the speed but the spread. When like posts go viral, I believe was a metaphor that he used. So this is just big, fast energy. It is so inspired, so enthusiastic. Um, it's just very full of enthusiasm. So again, just as long as we're aware that there is some confusion, maybe some delays, slowness, cooler receptions on the other side of this full moon, I think we're going to be just fine. But I do like it. I like this moon. I like the Taurus new moon. I like this full moon. This full moon is nested within the lunation that began with this beautiful Taurus new moon that we just had. So I feel good about it. And going back to, I'm going to get really dark for a second, actually. Trigger warning, death. So that Taurus new moon, it happened right after like a very tragic ending to a friend's life that was really hard for me. And he has a family, and I'm like, and I just kept thinking about this Taurus new moon and how we're all, it's that classic thing where you get into this quandary of trying to forecast for general populations of people, not knowing what any of your birth charts are, not knowing any of the context of your lives, not knowing the chart of the nation state that you are living in, which has a thing, the law of assumption that, it's like we have our chart, but then we're under the chart of a nation and who God knows what else. Um, and I just kept thinking about this departed loved one's remaining family. And like, what would I say to them about this Taurus new moon that's supposed to be so beautiful and amazing when everyone is grieving and sad? Could it be that I hope they were just surrounded by hot dish? I hope that they're just surrounded by support and love in that kind of Taurus new moon space. But it's really weird to talk about. Uh, it's it's hard to talk about things positively to everyone when you know there's going to be people who that's not what they're going to be experiencing. So, I think, then what I can do with that is just know that if I give a spectrum of meaning to someone, we really got to be careful about how much we upsell stuff. Everyone's like, yeah, Taurus, Jupiter, Venus, all together. And it is awesome. And like I said, I've been having so much indulgences. I had one of the best lattes of my life recently, and I made it in my own home. It's amazing. But yeah, like the most modest type of interpretation of this would be stability where you wouldn't expect it otherwise, or some modicum of support where otherwise there might be none. So again, Jupiter not only does abundance and growth and opportunities and lottery tickets and yum yums and whatever, Jupiter also does stability from conditions that were previously unstable, which is really anticlimactic for a lot of people. They bring understanding, which people are like, great, didn't ask for that. Now I have understanding. Thanks, Jupiter. And Jupiter can bring liberation from struggles. And this is something that I mentioned in my Q&A, my Q question and response session about how for my friend, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was his liberation from his own suffering. So it is just very difficult to, even when the transits are so good, you know, um, I think it's good to keep that in the back of the mind as we are talking about it. That's all I have to say about that. Oh, hello, Zach. Welcome. Good to see you. Oh, what else? I think I'm done talking about full moon. Um, by this point on the 24th, oh no, I got a riff on Venus and Gemini. So Venus and Gemini, well, I mean, it is so different than a Venus and Taurus. Venus and Taurus, very like eating grapes on a couch. Venus and Gemini, very much going out into the town to go find the best grapes. They're not waiting around. Um, excuse me. They're not waiting around for the yum yums to come to them. Um, it's so flirty and fun. Every person I meet with Venus and Gemini, they are able to just talk to anybody, have a conversation with anyone, flexible, adaptable, but relationally, like in such a cool way. So the word social butterfly definitely comes in, all of that. And talkative, wanting to share what they're enjoying with people, wanting to experience all the potentialities of pleasure. Like that is so Venus and Gemini. The hardest thing is just choosing, right? Now, Venus is going to be underneath the rays of the sun here, so we are not going to be able to see Venus. She is losing her chariot. She's losing her sunbrella on the 23rd of May as she comes into Gemini. So now it's like, usually Venus likes to move a little slower. She's a nocturnal planet. She likes her earth, earthliness in Taurus in terms of pacing for that reason. And for those of you who are super astute and wondering what the heck is up with Libra ruling a diurnal air sign, I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to Libra season. But I feel like Venus and Gemini is kind of like caffeine diet like light Libra in some ways. Because you can get that kind of airy intellectuality, but around art and around what is beautiful and wanting to share and talk about that. The last time Venus was in Gemini, that was last year. I remember because Mars was also in there, I believe, or maybe this was 2 years ago. That's when I found Qigong from a friend online. Yeah, we were talking about all of like the things that we really enjoy doing in terms of like astrology and magic practices. And then someone was like, oh yeah, and Qigong. And I was like, whoa. So yeah, that kind of pollination and cross-pollination, that is so nice when Venus is in Gemini. And they're going to be in there, by the way. So May 23rd of 2024 and June 17th of 2024. Um, so yeah, a good 3 weeks. What is that? That's a good solid 3 weeks. But in general, Venus and Gemini. So look at the house topics that have to do with Gemini in your chart. It's a time to explore your values around those things. So if this was like, if you are um, let's say you're a Taurus rising, if Gemini is your second house, Venus in here, what are your values around money? What are your values and like what are your needs and how are you getting those met? And maybe even from relationship or, how are you getting your needs met from like the Venus areas of your chart? That could be a whole discussion one could have, but exploring your values around the house topics of Gemini, exploring your preferences. What do I enjoy? What do I like, actually? Exploring ethics, morals, that kind of intellectual relationship stuff. What is right for me? What's best for me? What's right for other people? All of those kind of, and maybe this will be a nice thing too to have in the current climate, because right now I think it's so hard to come to the middle on things with people. We just want to like argue and dismiss each other like ASAP. I think this Venus and Gemini might make it easier for us to be a little bit more devil's advocate-y, be a little bit like more able to just hold that both and hold the duality of things a bit more. Um, Venus and Gemini. Oh, I always think of my friend Tristan. He has Venus and Gemini, and they're going to have their Venus return very soon. And they're just like the most beautiful, like fashionable, like a beam of like sunshine and like witty and like verbally just like able to be so poetic. And they have Sun, Venus in Gemini. And that's what I always think of. It's just like this perfect example. Um, big pollinator energy, very, very big pollinator energy. Uh, so Mars is going to be within 3 degrees of Chiron, and that's a thing to note. Actions toward healing, effort toward healing, actions toward understanding like any kind of recurrent difficulty in Aries. Aries rules this place, and Chiron has been here for many years. And so any difficulties we've been having in Aries, any kind of long-standing wounds we might have around the house topics of Aries. So uh, those topics, Mars is like, they know for you in your chart, how you can assert yourself, how you can advocate for yourself best on behalf of those topics. So for this person, this Leo rising person, they might have this recurring challenge in expressing beliefs or mass communications or publishing, or maybe there's just a wound or an ouchie around that. But Mars is here showing action. They're doing it anyway. It's kind of like that, oh, I'm scared of it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So much bravery required, especially if there's been ouchies in the past. So, on the same token, Mars, Chiron here, it can be very, very hurtful things happening. So let's just, again, get advice for everyone, May 24th. And I think we'll be able to do it with Venus and Gemini, is give each other the benefit of the doubt a little bit more. That might be a really helpful thing, like end of May, May 24th. as Mars is getting over this. And then they're on the other side of that by May 30th. So it's like May 24th to May 30th, Mars with Chiron. Let's just say, actions, hopefully effort being put toward rectifying or resolving some kind of challenging situation in the Aries house topics of your chart. And then we finally get to Jupiter and Gemini. Air horns, boo, 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 boo. We've been talking about this for pretty much a year. It's like as soon as Jupiter got to Taurus, Gemini. All right. So, like I said, there is a workshop happening. My workshop is really going to focus on this Jupiter-Saturn square. And that's, again, a lot of my content over the next month that I'm going to be putting out is about this square. So I'm not going to get into it too much today. So sorry about that. But I mean, in a nutshell, we're going to need to make some choices. We're going to want to have a lot of fun and do progress in Gemini. There's going to be restrictions or limitations coming from Pisces. So let me use a different example. So yeah, let's say for this theoretical Libra rising person, maybe they want to go on all of the long distance trips and traveling, but their job only allows 14 days of leave, or they have a health maintenance routine where it's like, okay, but if I want to go there, then I won't be able to take care of myself how I need to take care of myself. So there might have to be some compromise, adjustments, pivoting, making maybe some hard choices about what we do want to expand and really focus that energy on in the Gemini place. But this square really heats up in August and then in December. So at this point, we're going to start to see the sign-based square. By degree, they're a bit more sextile. So, it's not like a harsh angle. But for as much as Saturn and Jupiter are about world building, when they get in a square, the world building gets a little dicey, a little messy, I think, a little needing to work through some problem solving in the course of that world building that's happening. And that feels more like the square. So as much as Jupiter is going to be, on the 25th when they enter into here, they're going to be dealing with that until Saturn moves, which will be in I should say September of 2025. Jupiter is also getting this trine from Pluto, that really powerful power up, let's get through it, moving mountains type of energy of Pluto. Jupiter now, just like Sun and Venus, are getting to plug into that really powerful energy from Pluto. So whatever kind of obstacles, difficulties, barriers that we are finding in Pisces, I think we're going to have more than enough in ourselves to move over that, whatever that is. Jupiter, dignity-wise, let's bring up the confusing wheel. So, whoop, not that one. This one. So we can see when Jupiter enters, they're in their own decan for the first 10 degrees, and they're actually in their own bound until they get to what would that be? 12th, 13th degree or so, give or take. Can't see with my eyes. But Jupiter is going to have some kind of dignity in the first part of Gemini, which is really great because theoretically, they are in antithesis, they're in detriment. Jupiter is the furthest away from its fire home when it's in Gemini. And so what Jupiter likes to do, Jupiter likes to bring things together and make them coherent, to make them make sense, to have meaning, to have some kind of understanding. And when Jupiter gets into Gemini, Gemini is like a kaleidoscope. It like fractures stuff. It bifurcates. It goes in this path, like tendrils just like creeping out everywhere. And Jupiter, it's like herding cats. It's like Jupiter is trying to like get all the ideas and the information and the facts. And so it becomes like this unwieldy thing for Jupiter to try to do that here. And so there's that mismatch, that kind of incongruence of like what Jupiter is here to do and the environment in which they are asked to do it. At the same time, I think we can already put together like how the cool could be when we're seeing that Mercury is information and Jupiter is expansion. So data, finding that data, doing the data collection. We are collecting all of the data. So if you got some data to collect, oh my God, I just had an epiphany. I have been trying to work on my research for like the whole year, and I just have not been able to get to it. And what I need to do is sit and collect and work through all of my data. Oh, thank God. Okay, so that's what Jupiter will be about for me, clearly. So the collecting of all of the things. Um, Jupiter is also about truth, knowledge with a capital T, capital K. Gemini, it's not like if you are a heavy Gemini person, that doesn't mean that you don't care about truth and knowledge and any of those things. I guarantee you have other planets in your chart that are not in Gemini that, do other things for you. But Gemini inherently, its concern is not with the overall Jupiter meaning or the overall truth of the matter. It's similar to how it's like, uh, yeah, I don't have a metaphor for that or an analogy. I thought I did, but essentially, this could be very helpful. This could be very fruitful and useful. But it also like this dignity question. What is it for Jupiter to struggle here? For Jupiter to struggle here is to struggle with finding the facts, maybe exactly, or not to struggle to find them, but to find them the true one. It's like, yeah, there's expanding information, expanding data. I can imagine myself going over all the data. That doesn't mean I'm going to get a conclusion. That doesn't mean I'm going to understand what the hell it was all about. And that's what Jupiter really struggles to do here. Is like, okay, here it all is. What is it for? What is it doing? Now, again, but the fact that they have some dignity in these first 10 to 12 degrees, that really helps Jupiter with a lot of this stuff. So I guess if you do have Jupiter things to do, if you want to really tend to the Sagittarius and Pisces matters in your chart and those house topics, I would recommend doing it earlier than later in terms of Jupiter having some kind of dignity early on. Jupiter is goodwill, and when a planet is in detriment or antithesis, their significations get more inconsistent. So if goodwill is inconsistent, okay, yes, Jupiter is going into a place. There will be more goodwill in that place, but the goodwill might be slightly inconsistent. If Jupiter is good repute, this could be ill repute, or the good repute is inconsistent. It's like, I'm in good repute, but only with those people, not those ones. So yeah, there's a lot to talk about there. I'm going to end it there in terms of Jupiter and the dignity discussion, but its dignity is a matter of congruence and a matter of being resourced by the planet that rules you. And Jupiter in this situation is just not quite given the tools that it would like. Now, on the other hand, it is in an air sign. Jupiter also loves to be in an air sign. So, I mean, there are certain parts of Taurus, I almost wonder if they have just as poor of dignity as they do in some parts of Gemini. We need the Patrick Watson spreadsheet. I have it somewhere. Patrick Watson has this excellent dignity spreadsheet where he's just completely mapped out like at every degree pretty much where planets have the most strength by dignity. And it's not always as obvious as you would think. Just trying to do the quick mental math on it. Like Pisces is where Mars does really well, especially at the end of Pisces, because you can see that there. But anyway, I digress. Not as simple as just Jupiter in detriment. There's a lot more to that. Okay. Jupiter is in Gemini. And on the 26th, we got a Capricorn moon by this point. So the 25th, 26th, and the 27th, we're going to have a Capricorn moon. Those look like crunchy, productive days. Not like the most warm and fuzzy. The moon is not going to be in an aspect with either of the benefics by any major type of sympathy. And they're going to be in this square with with Mars, which looks really productive and constructive, but not necessarily like a warm and fuzzy, restful type of day. And again, that's more like 25th, 26th, 27th. It looks a little bit lighter on the end of the 27th in the west, into the 28th, in the 28th, more in the east. We're gonna see Aquarius moon in a trine with benefics, so in an air sign, probably a lighter, funner day on the 28th, 29th. Might get a little bit more fast-paced, and then especially on the 29th, we're going to get faster pace too, with Moon going into a square with Mercury Uranus. So that was kind of my last note of the month. Here on the 29th, 30th of May, Mercury retrograde protocols lightly, I would say. Extra communication, be flexible with disruptions, interruptions, over communicate, all of those things. Could be sudden, of course, breakthroughs, insights when it comes to Taurus topics or Mercury ruled topics. So again, constructive on like the 26th, 27th, but heavier, more serious, crunchy, 28th, 29th, lighter, more fast-paced, more energetic. But then especially later on the 29th, we might run into some funkiness, some interruptions, disruptions. And Mars is going to be with Chiron at the end of the month, right as Mercury meets Uranus. So that's really how the month ends. Is, this is like a recipe for saying something you'll regret, so please don't. Hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully the benefic influence in the sky will take care of things. But I feel like sometimes things can fly out of the mouth that are unexpected. Even, like think it first. Try it out by thinking it first before acting on it or saying it. But it's like unexpected things being said, unexpected interruptions, unexpected breakthroughs of information, of thought. Mars and Chiron could be really healing. So, I can think of circumstances where, like, if someone's, say, waiting for a medical diagnosis, this could be a sudden, like, yep, here's what's wrong, here's your treatment plan. And then it's like all of the rush of trying to get it going. So it could be something, very cool, but it is fast paced, and it does, these last few days of May require our flexibility and our over communication. So that's what I have for you, my friends. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you for your contributions. Of course, you can put comments down below if I missed anything. Did I miss anything? Did anyone want to look at anything else? Yeah, Zach, you've been doing a lot of writing, traveling, getting stuff done. Yeah, irritation, burnout. It's like, yes, I want to do these things. I have to do these things. It doesn't mean that we're like not getting like, that Mars energy. It can come through in so many ways, including irritation. Hello, Esther. Welcome. Is Saturn more constructive to Jupiter because it is in the sign of Jupiter's exaltation? Oh, that's a great point, Esther. So yeah, when we're looking at this Jupiter-Saturn connection, I think this is what you're talking about. So is Saturn more constructive to Jupiter because it is in the sign of Jupiter's exaltation? Oh, you mean like, so I assume you meant domicile rulership? But yeah, there's a reception here. So essentially, and this is what's been so nice too, with Jupiter in a sextile with Saturn, and Saturn being in Jupiter's home, it's like, and knowing that Jupiter and Saturn are both on the daytime team of day planets, they're very sympathetic to each other. They like to work together for the most part. They're doing daytime things together, being orderly and structurally together. And there's this reception. Jupiter sees Saturn, says, hey, you're in my house. Yeah, that's where the bathroom is. That's where the extra toilet paper is. That's the relationship they've been having that's been really supportive, constructive, and then extra because of that reception. Now, when Jupiter gets into the square, we will still have that type of reception where Jupiter is able to have an aspect and see Saturn in their own sign. So, but then it's a square and it's like, oh, Jupiter's like, I would love to help you, Saturn, to find the bathroom and know where the toilet paper is. But I'm doing all these fun things and I can't answer your call or your text right now. So there's a little bit of that having to like, we're going to have to circle that square a bit. But at the same time, that is a great mitigating factor. Not only that Jupiter will have some dignity in the first decan and then the second bound, Jupiter has dignity in an air sign. And this relationship is helped because Saturn is in a sign that Jupiter rules. So thank you for bringing that up. That is another really great mitigating factor to think about. Oh, Mars into Taurus. When does that? I think that's June 9th. Let me look. June 8th. June 8th at 11:43 p.m. Central Time. That'll be June 9th in the more Eastern time zones. So yeah, the 8th and the 9th. And that is really interestingly as well. We're getting Jupiter. I'm so excited to talk about them, making their appearance in the morning sky. And then there was something else happening too. I don't remember now, but in any event. All right, my friends. If this helped you, if you feel like you got assistance, please hit the like button, share, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you as always. I currently have not planned anything for the end of the month, but of course, I'm most likely going to be doing this on like the 29th, 30th, 31st of May. I'm going to be in Minnesota at the end of the month. And then, of course, I'll see everyone on the second Thursday, which is going to be June 13th at 7 p.m. for my question and response time. I am booking. I think I'm booked out like 3 weeks right now, 3 or 4 weeks. Not 4 weeks, no way. So you can get in pretty fast still. If you would like a discount, the Astrology podcast, I'm in a referral program with them. And so if you use the code Astrology Podcast, that will get you a 10% off on any of my services. You can sign up for my newsletter. That is also linked below. That comes out once a month. And that is where I give steeper discounts. If I give discounts, that's where they're going to come, is in the newsletter. Sometimes I write horoscopes, not all the time, pretty scant in terms of horoscopes. But if I do write horoscopes, you better believe they're going to end up in that newsletter. So you're going to want to sign up for the newsletter. Just community PSA, Austin Coppock, 36 Faces watch, because we're still watching. It's still $5,000 on the internet. But there's supposed to be second edition coming out this year. So I'm still like crossing my fingers that under these guys, this will happen. But I also want to just like generously be like, yeah, we should all be looking. I want all of us to be on top of that because I know it's not just me that wants that book. I don't. Oh, there's one other fun thing I wanted to do. This is actually just for fun. My meditation practice has been trash lately, but I did get these to kind of help support myself. These are not a friend of the show, but Roshi Joan Halifax. What is it? In a moment, in a breath. And it's these cards that have little meditations on them. And I want to share one with you. And they've got different elements. There's earth for grounding, fire, water, air, space. And with the sun in Taurus, we should do an earth one. So I'm gonna just pick a random earth one. They've been really nice so far. Okay, what's this one? This is called Anchoring the Mind with the Breath. All right, it's pretty short, but it says, gather your attention on the sensation of the in-breath. As you exhale, drop your attention into your body and relax. Let your attention to the in-breath and the out-breath anchor and then open your mind and heart. Let your attention to the in-breath and the out-breath anchor and open your mind and heart. Mm, that is nice. Yeah. Yeah, what I've been noticing lately is just like my noticing practice is how when I am so focused and thinking thoughts and very fire, very even if I'm doing action too, you need to focus. If I'm, using a blade in the kitchen, you need to focus. It's not unhealthy to do that. But in those states, the mind and the heart are rather closed. Like there is this sensation of like tunnel or focus or a closing off almost necessarily, like you have to. But when I'm not doing anything, when I'm not thinking thoughts, when I'm not cutting things in the kitchen and, whatever, having to be like, "Mm," um, my heart is much more open and I can feel a bit anchored. And what's anchoring me in my focus zone, my closed focus zone, there is almost seemingly an anchor, but it's like it's attached to that object that I'm focusing on. There's something different about just allowing yourself to be your own anchor. And like this mentioned, um, yeah, let your attention to the in-breath and out-breath anchor and then open your mind and heart. So it's a different thing having that other anchor that isn't attached to anything other than you, which is very nice. So yeah, nice little card deck. I've never gotten one like this before. I just have tarot cards, but I kind of use this as a little bibliomancy too, like to help me know if I'm struggling. Pull one of these babies. It's like, all right, yeah, actually, that is what I needed probably. Oh, yeah, it's bookings, maybe completing research this year. I don't think I have anything else. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And I will see you